was probably the darkest chapter, when the Mongols were outside the gate and another tyrant was inside. Alauddin had ascended the throne in Delhi. He was ruthless and became stronger by the day. His armies reached everywhere. They brought treasures, power, and hate. One day, they brought him luck in the form of a precious slave. It would mark the beginning of Noir Amour, Très Noir. The exploits of Mad Tughlaq are well known, but Alauddin Khilji also was not spared, nor his Noir love. All of them were fatally attracted and consumed by Andhaari, the dark hole of Daulatabad.
Andhaari, or the Dark Hole, is a marvel of military engineering designed by the Yadava kings of Devgiri. She is the ultimate psychological line of offensive defense.
Aurangabad is known as the tourist capital of the state of Maharashtra. But I'll go further. I'll say that Aurangabad is the tourist capital of South Asia. The reason that this particular district of Aurangabad, it is having the first World Heritage Site of India. To talk about the fort of Devgiri, this is the only fort in the country which got the recognition, or which was rather the capital of the then ancient India. Like we know about the dynasty of the Yadavas who ruled from the Devgiri fort. They ruled for nearly 1100 years. After them, this fort was taken by the Tughlaqs, then the Mughals, then the Nizams.
There are some 270 pieces of artillery in the fort, many of them still in the same position as they were placed centuries back.
Mendha means the bighorn sheep or the Marco Polo sheep commonly found in the hilly terrain of Afghanistan, where the cannon was manufactured by Muhammad Hussain Arab. It is 5.3 meter in length, 50 centimeter diameter in the front, and 70 in the rear. It is designed to fire a 20 centimeter caliber across a couple of miles.
Durga Cannon is located at the highest point in Daulatabad. It is longer than the Mendha at 5.8 meter with 18 centimeter caliber. Then there are a large number of cannons which were acquired from the British, Dutch and Portuguese East India Companies. The defense strategy had not factored in any artillery when the fort was constructed in the 10th century.
This particular location of Devgiri or Daulatabad region, it is very strategic in nature, because you find that this entire fort, it is surrounded by the mountain ranges. Here in the recorded history, you will never find that any earthquake took place here, or you will never find that there was flood.
This oversized rock amidst the mountains was handcrafted by the artisans in the 10th century. They converted this large rock into one of the strongest forts in the world. The conical structure with sharp vertical cliffs surrounded by a moat formed the first line of defense. The stone walls, tall gates, hidden gun holes, zigzag paths form additional layers of defense. But the most unique is the last line of defense. It is an example of offensive defense. The Andhaari is a masterpiece.
Devgiri was undefeated in its first 100 years of existence under the Yadava rulers. At the end of the 13th century, it faced the biggest threat. The man at the gate had been dispatched by the Delhi Sultan with a specific target, Deval Devi, the princess of Gujarat.
This was the second attempt on Devgiri. Sometime back, when Alauddin himself had attacked, Manik was busy wrestling in Khamba. Unaware of affairs beyond his town, probably unaware of his destiny taking shape in distant Devgiri. At that time, Simhana, the crown prince, was defeated outside the fort. Alauddin had collected a huge ransom without having to break into the fort. Manik was also winning his dangals.
The victory over Devgiri had implications on the Delhi throne, as Alauddin, emboldened to rebel against his uncle Jalaluddin, to kill him and take charge of the Delhi throne. He consolidated to expand his army and led expeditions to push the borders of his kingdom. His army attacked Gujarat, where Manik was bought for 1,000 dinars, converted to Islam, henceforth to be called Malik Kafur Hazar Dinari, and presented to the Sultan. Wrestling was practically over, but fighting intensified. The pit became bigger. The fort complex has an area of almost 100 hectares and represents a unique combination of military and civil engineering. The outer wall of the fort is 5 km in circumference, with height ranging between 6 to 9 meters and thickness of over a meter. The entrance to the Ambar Court is defended by large bastions. The face of the gateway above the door has 3 large openings for artillery.
Facing the second gateway, there is a conical tower with a covered balcony midway to cover the entrance.
In the courtyard there is another gate and then another, followed by another and then some more. To reach the following gate, one must pass diagonally through, exposed to defensive fire from all sides.
After the Mahakot comes the Kalkot, further up the hill, and the climb becomes steeper. While Kalkot was occupied by the royalty, the Mahakot was residential quarters for the civilians. Kalkot is surrounded by a moat and was filled with crocodiles. The original bridge is below the iron bridge. The attackers had to descend down and then climb up. The bridge is narrow. Soldiers had to march in a single column. Made it easy for the defending soldiers on the other side.
The narrow passageways, abrupt turns with carefully designed gates rendered elephants useless. Large armies were forced to move in single or double columns, thereby negating the size advantage.
Alauddin's marital life is a complex, melancholy story. His first marriage was a total disaster. The relationship turned for the worse after Alauddin murdered his father-in-law. Then he married Maharu, sister of Alp Khan. Then he married another woman, Pasha Begum. Another story is that of Rani Padmavati of Chittor, which caused a storm.
Later, he fell in love with the wife of Rai Karan Baghela, the king of Gujarat. After defeating him, he married her. Kamla Devi's daughter, however, stayed with her first husband, who had fled and sought refuge at Devgiri.
The Sikandar-e-Sahani, as Alauddin liked to call himself, was also in love with the slave Manik. Manik, or Malik Kafur, also turned out to be a successful soldier, led many campaigns for its sultan. Being a wrestler, distinct fighting came naturally. He had been dispatched to Devgiri at the instance of Kamala Devi. The mission was Deval Devi, the daughter who was with her father.
Malik Kafur, as Manik was now known, laid siege on the Devgiri fort, but he too had realized the futility of trying to break through the defenses of the fort.
The mysteries of the subterranean passage, Andhaari, are not yet fully unraveled, even today. This maze is an unparalleled example of exceptional strategic military architecture and relied on denying vision.
His intelligence had updated him on the Andhari, and he had no answer to the dark hole.
The tunnel has twists and turns. The floor was laid with poison-tipped thorns. The passage is narrow, with uneven steps. The random turns make it easy to split the invading soldiers and pit them against each other. Suddenly, there is a beam of light that creates the illusion of natural light, but instead takes the soldier down the precipice to the obliging crocodiles. Then there was the smoke barrier, about halfway through. When the fire was lit, the current of air from the hole would waft the smoke up the tunnel, suffocating the invaders. To add to the misery, it was sulfur flavored.
And if some soldier tried to kill the darkness by lighting a torch, he would make himself a visible sitting duck. Only the tools of the trade have changed over the centuries, not the art of war.
Defenders are ready to kill.
And a proposal has been sent by the Archaeological Survey of India to the UNESCO for getting the World Heritage Site status. It is having a this architecture of the fort, it is having a very strategic military architecture, nowhere to be found in the country. So this is the second reason.
The siege lasted for months. The fort was well stocked with water and provisions. It was able to hold out. Finally, the slave general convinced the son-in-law of the then Yadava king.
The king surrendered, agreed to be a vassal of the Delhi Sultanate, visit Delhi to pay his respects, and marry one of his daughters to Alauddin Khilji. Deval Devi was also reunited with her mother.
The alliance proved to be of great help to Alauddin as he made Daulatabad a strategic base for further incursions into the south. Malik Kafur attacked Warangal the following year. One of the prized acquisitions of Warangal was the Kohinoor, which now travelled to Delhi. Next year, Dwar Samudra came under the Delhi influence.
Raja Ramdev of Devgiri died a few years later, and his son Shankar Deva ascended. The young blood of Devgiri refused to acknowledge the overlordship of Delhi. He also had personal reasons. His bride, Deval Devi, who had been taken away just before the marriage could happen, was now married to the son of Alauddin.
Once again, Alauddin sent his man Friday down to Devgiri, this time with a different and cruel intent. The king was captured and put to death. Devgiri was annexed into the Delhi Sultanate. Malik Kafur assumed direct administration. The borders of the Delhi Sultanate had never been pushed thus far in the south. This marked the peak of Alauddin's career. As a reward, the slave general Malik Kafur was made Malik Naib, but he still had an unfinished agenda.
Devgiri lies in the Deccan Plateau. Although we can see the greenery around the fort, the climate is very harsh. During the summers, the temperature, it crosses over 40 degrees centigrade. And during the monsoons, the annual precipitation is around 600 mm.
In such a scenario, water becomes a strategic military resource to be managed efficiently. The huge water reservoir inside the fort was filled through a siphon system by connecting it with the distant river.
Wow! Look at on the top of the fort. There's a huge water tank. Water is circulating through the rock. Oh wow! It's as good as mineral water. Tired me. Wow! It's so refreshing. It's clean. Let me try. Can I drink it?
While Khilji had made a beginning in assimilating the Deccan into the Delhi Sultanate, the next Sultan went a few steps forward.
Muhammad bin Tughlaq had been sent on Deccan campaigns to subdue the Kakatiyas at Warangal, during which he had gained first-hand experience of the region.
2 years later, he ascended the throne, and soon thereafter he shifted the capital from Delhi to Devgiri, which he had renamed as Daulatabad. From the hill of gods to the land of prosperity, the change was much more than metaphorical. It was one of the many strategic decisions that the Sultan had taken during his rule. It had far-reaching implications on Deccan. Suddenly, it had become the seat of power for an empire extending far north. The huge population influx changed the composition of the city. It became a center of Islamic culture. The Islamic influence that was until now limited to north of Narmada reached south. So even though it was only for a decade before the capital was shifted back to Delhi, it had a lasting impact on the region. Daulatabad and Khildabad in particular became a prominent center of Sufism. The valley had tombs of 1400 saints.
Third reason that it has a long continuous history and it has a living culture. Like we see downstairs that the village of Daulatabad, it is still existing there, and to the north we find the village of Khildabad. So these two villages, they are existing since last more than 1000 years. So this living culture and heritage is associated with this fort.
And politically, after the shifting out, the vacuum led to the rise of two different kingdoms. Tughlaq's general Zafar Khan, who was posted in Daulatabad, rebelled and founded his own dynasty.
Oh, done it!
And south of the Tungabhadra, Hakka and Bakka created history. Incidentally, Zafar Khan was a servant of a Brahmin astrologer named Gangu, Gangadhar Shastri Babre of Delhi, and he was himself called Hassan Gangu.
The Chand Minar stands tall in its red glory, a reminder of the beginning of the Bahmani rule. Hassan Gangu, inspired by the Minar in Delhi, had made a replica in Daulatabad. It is the second tallest Minar in the country. Chini Mahal was made using blue tiles brought from Beijing, said to be from the same source as used in the Summer Palace. It was here that the last king of Golconda, Abdul Hassan Tana Shah, was imprisoned by the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb for 13 years until death liberated him. Sambhaji Raje was also forced to stay here.
Further up at the summit is the most beautiful part of Daulatabad Fort, built by the most aesthetic builder, Shah Jahan himself. The double-storied building of Baradari is symmetrical in style and constructed of black chiseled basalt stones.
The exquisitely designed arches of the Baradari provide a 360-degree view of the landscape.
The dissolution of the Bahmani Sultanate saw the rise of 5 splinters, of which the Nizam Shahi established himself at Daulatabad before shifting out to Ahmednagar.
Shah Jahan captured the fort and imprisoned the Nizam. By 1636, Aurangzeb had annexed Ahmednagar into the Mughal fort.
After the Mughals, Sadashiv during the reign of Nana Sahib unfurled the Peshwa flag and built this Ganesh temple. Next year, thereafter, the fort passed on to the Nizams, who made it their capital until they shifted their capital to Hyderabad. It remained with them till 1948, that is Operation Polo.
The Jama Masjid located inside the fort is a blend of Indo-Islamic architecture. The destruction and reconstruction was so massive that even today we find some evidences lying scattered around. Now the place has been converted into a shrine for Bharat Mata, one of the few in Bharat. The Nizam, who, given their friendly relations with the British, was able to conserve and maintain her beauty. ASI has continued the good work. Even after almost 1,000 years, she stands tall, pretty much.
Daulatabad fort is one of the best maintained forts in the country. Already it has been a proposal has been sent by the Archaeological Survey of India to the UNESCO for getting the World Heritage Site status. And I am very sure that this status would be given very soon.
The last line of defense, the dark hole or Andhaari, even today mystifies. Something to be experienced and not just to be read or heard or to be seen. Today, visitors have an option to bypass the Andhaari by taking the steps. But then what's the point? Men who could win her were no ordinary artists. They were the grandmasters in the art of war. These men would then aim for bigger things. Even Manik, the wrestler, who was enslaved, was charged up.
He returned from Devgiri to Delhi with ambition, just like Alauddin had some time back.
The following year, Manik had finally ended his slavery. He killed the Sultan who loved him. The slave became the Sultan for 35 days until the bodyguards of Alauddin killed him. Some love stories are indeed very dark.